Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's story takes us to a quiet Arizona property just outside an HOA boundary where privacy trees stood for decades until a neighbor decided a mountain view mattered more than someone else's land. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. My neighbor bragged she owned City Hall until a tape measure shut her up. I live in Arizona, right on that border of civilization, where on one side you've got normal properties with no HOA, and on the other you've got a cute little master plan neighborhood with gates, dues, committees, and people who genuinely believe that if they pay monthly for aesthetics, they automatically bought the right to control everything their eyes can see, even if what they're looking at isn't theirs. My house isn't in an HOA. I chose it that way on purpose. I wanted quiet, space, and zero improvements from strangers on my land. I've got a small setup, a shed, tools, feed, and every so often I have hay bales delivered, nothing crazy. And the best part of my yard used to be a row of old cypress trees along the back fence. 20 years old at least. Tall, thick, about the height of a two-story house. They gave me the thing Arizona values almost as much as water, shade, and privacy. With those trees, I could walk into my kitchen in the morning, pour coffee, and not feel someone's gaze from a hill like I was an exhibit in a museum called The Daily Life of Regular People. The problem started when Karen moved in behind the fence. I didn't even know her name the first week. I just heard her voice, one of those voices that doesn't merely exist in the air, it demands the air. Then she decided to introduce herself. I was watering my plants when she walked up to the fence, leaned an elbow on it like it was her fence, and nodded toward the trees. Mine, I said, without raising my voice. I'm the kind of person who doesn't start a fight until I'm sure the other person truly deserves it. She adjusted her glasses and smiled the way people smile when they love words like committee and citation. They block the view. I bought my house for the mountains. Because of these, she paused like she was searching for a polite word, bushes, my home is losing value. I wiped my hands on my jeans. You mean my trees? Yes, they need to go. It's not right. It's not neighborly. I'm not in the HOA, I said, finally looking at her, and the trees are on my land. She tilted her head slightly like I just told her a really funny joke. HOA or not, we live in a decent neighborhood. People cooperate. Otherwise, well, there can be consequences. Consequences, I repeated? Like what? You'll call the manager of nature? Karen didn't laugh. She did the other trick. She let the silence hang and then spoke softer, almost confidential. I have relatives everywhere, city offices, departments, and let's just say I don't like being told no. Some people are born with a conscience. Some are born with a phone book. I nodded like I was hearing a weather forecast. Yup, windy. I'm sorry, I said. The trees stay. Her smile sharpened. We'll see. After that, she started living near my fence. She'd stand there and talk on the phone loud enough that I heard every word. Yeah, he's stubborn. No, he doesn't get it. Yes, it ruins the look. She'd take photos of something in my yard. I never saw exactly what she was photographing, but I had a feeling that if I ever got a crack in my concrete, she'd take a passport photo of it. I tried not to react because the truth is, Karen is like desert dust. If you start fighting it, it just gets deeper into your eyes. Then I had to leave on a short work trip. 2 days, about a 2 or 3 hour drive. I locked up, checked the gate, left. And honestly didn't believe anyone would actually do what she'd been hinting at. I came back the second evening, opened the gate, and something inside me just dropped. My cypresses weren't trimmed, not cleaned up. They were cut down to stumps. Where there used to be a green wall of privacy, there was a line of blunt little posts like someone planted grave markers for common sense. Branches piled up, ground torn up, sawdust, boot prints. My yard looked like the trees had gone to an HOA job interview and gotten the standard benefits package. Layoffs without severance, but with a great mountain view. I stood there and just stared. You know the state where your brain says, no, this can't be real, and your eyes answer, oh, buddy, it can. I walked to the fence. Over there in their HOA world, they love gates, locks, and no trespassing signs. But somehow those only work in one direction. Karen was already on her patio, drink in hand, like a queen on a balcony who'd just finished watching fireworks. "Welcome back," she said without welcoming me. "Looks nice now, doesn't it?" My voice stayed even only because otherwise I would have gone straight to yelling, "You came onto my property and destroyed my stuff?" Karen took a sip and shrugged. "Don't be dramatic. They'll grow back. And honestly, now you have a view too. You should be grateful." "I don't need your view," I said. "I need my trees. They were here 20 years. She smiled wider. "Well, see, 20 years means they already lived a good life. Time for an update. Besides," she leaned closer to the fence, "if you're thinking about suing, I wouldn't waste your time. I have relatives at City Hall. And friends. At most, you'll get some check, but the trees? Well, what's done is done." The way she said what's done is done was so casual, like she'd spilled water on someone else's rug, not like she'd killed a 20-year-old wall of living privacy. I went inside and sat at my kitchen table. I stared out the window where I could now see her patio. Part of me wanted the simplest route, call the police, file a lawsuit, do everything the right way. And I knew that was correct. But I also knew what correct looks like in real life. Months of paperwork, lawyers, assess the value of the trees, experts, stress. And even if I won, I'd get money, not privacy, not shade, not my peace. And she, with her relatives, would make sure every step felt as miserable as possible. That same evening, a random visitor showed up at my door, a man in an expensive shirt who introduced himself like I should already know him. "I'm just a neighbor," he said, and he had that insurance salesman smile. "Heard you got a misunderstanding. I know people who don't like situations getting out of control." "Are you threatening me?" I asked. No, he lifted both hands. "I'm for peace. Just sometimes it's better not to make sudden moves, you understand? Who has what connections?" I looked at him and said as calmly as I could, "I understand. Tell Karen I don't like conflict either, but I do like privacy." He smiled like I was a kid who just said, "I'm going to be an astronaut." "Well, you're an adult, your decision." When the door shut, I smiled for the first time all day because I'd already started deciding. I barely slept that night. I pulled up city and county rules, accessory storage, outbuildings, setbacks, permits, property lines. I didn't care what was normal. I cared what was written. And when you read enough of that kind of text, sometimes you don't just find a sentence, you find a door. I found that on my land outside the HOA, I could have an agricultural storage structure for inventory, feed, hay, no utilities, no living space, all within requirements and setbacks. In plain terms, if you make it boring, it's legal. And then an idea hit me, so simple and so mean that I actually laughed in the dark. I have a buddy who works with shipping containers. Places like that always have a graveyard of retired containers, rusty, dented, ugly, but still solid. Not good enough for ocean freight anymore, but perfect for being what a tree can't be once it's been cut down, a stable barrier. I called him in the morning. "I need 2 40-footers, old, cheap, not seaworthy." "What for?" he laughed. "You opening a port?" "For hay," I said, "and for a geometry lesson." A few days later, I had the paperwork, the pad prepped, and the setbacks marked. I didn't want 3 high in a circus. I wanted plausibility and ironclad legality. So 2 high, about 17 to 18 feet of metal, enough to bring back privacy and kill the panorama. Saturday morning, the sun's barely up, the air's still tolerable, and then diesel rumble, crane, flatbeds. The kind of noise that probably made coyotes pause and go, "Well, that's a human problem." The first container slowly lifted into the air and settled down right where the cypresses used to be. The metal clanged like someone putting a period at the end of a sentence. I stood there watching my new barrier drop into place. Karen shot out onto her patio in pajamas with her phone in hand. "What is that?" she screeched. "You can't." I didn't even raise my voice. "Good morning, Karen." "That's a junkyard. It ruins the look. It's, she sucked in air. "It's illegal." I nodded to the crane operator. The second container rose up, slow and heavy, like a decision cooked through on zero sleep. They stacked it on top and secured it. Karen watched her panorama die a second time, this time not from a chainsaw, but from my cold, boring legality. "I'm calling the city. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the HOA," she yelled. "You can call NASA if you want," I said, "but this is my land and it's agricultural storage. Hay, feed, tools. You removed my natural barrier, so now I'm putting up an artificial one." "You're doing this just to spite me." She switched to you like we were suddenly close because panic always rips the mask off. "No," I said, "I'm doing it for me. Spite is when someone comes onto someone else's land and chops down what isn't theirs. And the funny part, she really did call everyone. Within an hour, an inspector was in my yard with a cop. Karen was pacing around, pointing at the containers like it was the crime of the century. "He's destroying my house. He's ruining my property value. This is revenge." The inspector walked up, measured, checked setbacks, flipped through documents. I handed him a folder, organized, printed, clean, like people who understand that emotions are for losing and paperwork's for winning. "What's it for?" he asked. "Agricultural storage, hay, feed, tools. No utilities, not a dwelling," I said. He turned pages, looked again. "Setbacks are good. On your land." "Okay." Karen practically choked. "But he blocked my view." The cop looked at her like she'd just complained that a stranger's shadow was inconveniencing her. The inspector sighed. "Ma'am, you don't own the view. If you have a complaint about the trees, that's a different matter. But this structure," he tapped the metal, "is legal." Karen tried to push again. "I have relatives." "Great," the inspector cut in. Not rude, just tired. "Tell your relatives today I'm working with a tape measure and documents. Have a good day." After they left, Karen stayed on her patio staring at her new reality. Instead of mountains, 2 stories of rusty metal. She stepped closer to the fence and hissed, "I'm not leaving this like this." I looked at the stump still sticking up like a monument to her personality. "What's done is done, Karen. Enjoy the view." After that, she made more attempts. Relatives showed up, men with that "I handle problems" look. They spoke politely, but with the subtext, "We can make your life unpleasant." "Do you really want a conflict?" one asked. "I don't want a conflict," I said. "I want privacy. I had it. It was destroyed. I restored it, legally. But it looks ugly." "I know," I said. "Funny you only noticed ugliness now." They grumbled and left because connections only work against paperwork when the other side makes a mistake. And I wasn't going to. And then my favorite incident happened, unplanned, but so symbolic. I still remember it like a little joke life handed me as a reward. Karen started driving her pickup back and forth on the road near my house, slow, pausing like she was staking me out. She'd pass, stop, stare at the containers, the yard, me. If she caught sight of me, then she'd drive off, turn around, come back. She had the expression of someone who thinks her mere presence is a United Nations sanction. I let it go. It wasn't illegal. It was just pathetic. And then one day in the heat, when the air shimmers over the asphalt, she did her usual pass, stopped hard, and her pickup coughed, jerked, and died. She tried to start it. The starter spun, and nothing. Again, nothing. The truck sat there like her power, loud, but not moving. Karen got out and slammed the door so hard I was impressed the metal survived. She popped the hood, leaned in with an expression like, "What is this black magic?" Then she closed it, called someone, and started gesturing like a disaster movie director. I watched from the window, and I didn't do anything bad. I didn't even laugh. I just filled a big glass with iced tea and stepped out onto my porch. Sat down. Took a long sip. The ice clinked, pretty, like a tiny bell of justice. Karen turned her head and saw me, her face twisted in anger like I'd personally killed her engine with the power of my mind. "What are you staring at?" she yelled. I lifted my glass in a gesture that could be read as hello or cheers. "Good afternoon, Karen. Great weather for waiting on help." "You could," she swallowed her pride, but it got stuck halfway down, "give me a ride, or at least help." I tilted my head like I was thinking. "Oh," I said as politely as possible. "I'd love to, but I don't like conflict." "And you said you have relatives everywhere. I'm sure they'll solve it quickly." Karen made a sound like a kettle trying to swear. She went back to her truck and stood there helpless in her expensive confidence, suddenly unable to handle something as basic as an open hood. The tow truck took almost an hour. I sat on the porch the entire time, sipping tea. Not laughing, just being present. Sometimes the best dark humor is silence, because in silence people can hear their own choices. When the tow truck driver arrived, their driver looked at her pickup, then at her, then at me, and I'm pretty sure he understood everything without anyone saying a word. "Rough day, huh?" he said. Karen muttered something nasty, and I took another sip. The ice clinked like it had just delivered a diagnosis. "Those 2 containers are still standing, on my side. Order, a lock, hay, tools, shade where I can still create it. On her side, metal and silence. Every now and then she tries to fight again, files complaints, grumbles, points at my yard like I'm the neighborhood's public enemy. but it always ends the same way. She can't say what exactly I'm violating. She wanted a mountain view so badly she turned my backyard into a before photo. Apparently her definition of neighborly is, I take your stuff, you say thank you. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.